Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the NFL Properties Santa Claus cards that were designed by every single card brand in 1994 in the football card market. This was the second year that they did this, that they did card designs where, these promos where every card company made a Santa Claus card. It was a really cool tradition they started in 1993, spurred by the tradition of Pro Set and Pro Line making annual Santa Claus cards. The idea that the NFL Properties would just hand the reins over to every single card company to make up their own idea for a Santa Claus card was a really fun idea. It was a great gimmick to really get card collectors to be more engaged, especially younger collectors. And it was also a good exposure in case there were any card companies that just weren't being discovered by collectors. They could know that there was a little bit more out there. There was a lot more out there. So it was so much fun for us at the time to get these cards. They were so different and so creative. Although the creativity was quite varying, both in terms of year by year by year, but also card company by card company. So some of these card companies were very, very effective at the cards they made. And some of these card companies, yeah, not so much. So this is a ranking of all 10, and there were only 10 companies at this time because there was 2 companies that just didn't survive out of the end of the junk wax era. 1993 was the last year for both Pro Set and for Wildcard. So at this point we only had 10 card companies, so we had 10 cards to go by. But the set did have a title card checklist which had a very nice but a very general Santa Claus image. In this case, he's building a house of cards with football cards, which actually is a really fun idea. I like that. Normally he's like decorating a tree or something like this. Well, in this case, he's making a house of cards out of cards, which is pretty cool. Although I do have to note that the cards are all Topps and Fleer. There's one card that is a McDaniels card that I recognize the image. I don't know what card set it was from, but they don't have a white border around it. And so that might be another card brand, which would be the only one. But I think the reason that they used only Fleer and Topps is because both of those cards had a white border around the outside, so they were easier to recognize as cards. Regardless, whatever the reason was, that's what they went with. But it is a pretty general Santa card, so it's kind of like a midpoint. This is kind of what you would expect for a Santa card, so you would hope that the cards would be better, and the cards that don't do as well is kind of a what happened, why did you end up that way? And that's obviously where we're starting at the bottom here of these 10, which is with Pacific, which plummeted from third to worst here. So the 93 card was better because the card itself was a bit better, not because the image was better, although the image was better. In the case here in 1994, what happened? Just absolutely what happened? First off, the card isn't like anything that Pacific was making in football. They've got a white border, they've got a white border, just starting off with that. And then the image inside is a mess. I really don't like this. This card looks more like the insert card sets that they were doing in 96 and 97 that were fillers with other card brands, or with Pacific card brands. And that's really what this looks like. But here in 94, they just didn't have anything like this. And why? I really don't understand why they did this. So I don't want to talk anymore about this card because I really, 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 really do not like it. Now, slightly better is, well, okay, not slightly better, a lot better, is Collector's Edge. And this has basically swapped, it's moved up from the worst to the second worst. The case of this card is the image isn't that terrible. It's boring. It's really boring. I don't understand the front of this card. When I look at the front of this card, there's no theme. It's like they sat down in a boardroom and said, well, what do we need? Well, we need a Santa, and we need maybe a nutcracker, and maybe a drum, and maybe just a couple of things. They said, okay, put them on there. And so they did. It's just kind of floating around. It's weird. And I don't like it. I mean, this card is just, now, when I look at it, I always immediately think, oh, I guess that's playoff. I wonder how the Tech Chrome effect reads on this, and then I discovered no, it's Collector's Edge, which doesn't have Tech Chrome, which makes it just super bland. I don't get what they're doing. So the card is just a failure on my part because it doesn't do anything. However, on the card back, it has that wonderful present effect. The whole design is really cool. Which begs the question, so wait, is that the card front? So you normally come up and it's a present and then you turn it over and this is what's underneath? I mean, that would make a lot more sense and that might be what they were going for. It doesn't really read that well because the one side has basically nothing on it. The other side does have writing, and normally you have the writing on the card back. So what I wish that they had done was I wish that they'd left the Collector's Edge logo off of the present side, and then you see the present and then you turn it over and underneath or on the opposite side is just a big Collector's Edge logo. Had they done that, I think this card would have been really nice. Would it have been a Santa Claus card? Technically no, but it would have been so much better. Now with Fleer, this is the biggest drop. They plummeted all the way down to third to worst, number 7 on this list, or number 8 on this list, sorry. And this suffers from the same problem as the 1993 card. And it also suffers from something the 93 card didn't suffer from. So the 93 card that they designed used the Ultra design, and it had a wonderful image. I love the picture that they had on the 93 card. In that card, when I was describing it for the 93 video, I used the term woodland creatures. And that's because I was getting the two images conflated. I was envisioning the 93 image, but I was remembering that there were woodland creatures on it. Well, that's actually just the 94 card that has it. And that's what's weird about this image, is that here you have this really folksy, older picture of Santa with woodland creatures around him, and I mean, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have the same spirit as the 93 card, but it has its own spirit that could kind of work, except for the green footballs behind, which kills whatever it had going for it. And that's the problem that this card has, is they have a theme of the art, and then the rest of the card does something wildly different. They don't go together. But again and again and again, gold foil. Just put the gold foil on the card. It's not that hard, and it really would make the card a whole lot better. In fact, if they had the gold foil and they had the woodland Santa with a proper backdrop, this could have been a much better card. It just wasn't. That being said, I really like the card back. It's almost a theme that we're starting to run into here. With this card back, I really like it. In fact, they even have a Christmas ornament with the picture of Santa with the woodland creatures, and in the ornament, if you look closely, you'll notice that the actual background is behind Santa. It looks so much better. It looks so much better. So this is a card that I love looking at the card back, not the card front. That's not... Ultra really would have to, or Fleer and Ultra would really have to pick things up, because this card has everything that it needs to be a good card, except Fleer can't get out of its own way. Boy, that's a trend that I'm used to hearing. So when we move up to number 7, here we come to Score Pinnacle. And it's Sportflics. They went with Sportflics. Why did they go with Sportflics? Rarely have I liked Sportflics cards. There have been a few that have been pretty cool, but for the most part, Sportflics is a gimmick, and that's all that there is to it. I really don't understand why there are so many Sportflics sets over the years. Apparently, a lot of kids were buying Sportflics cards. I don't really get it. In the case of this, the design is pretty bland. It's a Sportflics card. It really carries through with that. But the images that they have are pretty good. They have 2 images. They work well. I'm not going to spend the time to show you both images. I just don't want to spend enough time working on this card for this presentation. But they do look pretty good. And they do get credit for the fact that they have the Sack Attack theme on this card. But it's Sportflics, and it's bland. But that's the strength that this card has. That's why I have it higher than the Ultra, because the Ultra card is a design mess and there's no gold foil. If I was counting card backs, Ultra would easily jump over this card. But at the end of the day, the art on the Sportflics cards, at least that works. And that's the only reason that I have this all the way up here at number 7. And moving up to number 6, which puts us right up to the middle of this whole group, is Topps, which is showing that we've got a ways to go to get to good cards. Because this Topps card, I'm looking here at the front of the card and I'm thinking, That's got to be the back. That absolutely has to be. It feels like a card back. It feels like the kind of card when you turn it over and you go, okay, here is the other side. Almost like this is the other side of Collector's Edge's present. The problem is, well, what does the back look like? Oh, it's a Stadium Club card back. Okay, so that was the card front. Great, so the card front is boring and the card back is a Stadium Club card back. And I don't like the 94 Stadium Club card backs. I don't like any of them. This card really suffers from feeling like two different card backs. So where Edge looks like two different card fronts, here we have two different card backs. But I have to say, as I'm looking at this card back, I'm starting to think, I kind of like it. The colors, I think, work really well. And actually, the image, the way everything works together, I think this is the first 94 Stadium Club card back I actually kind of like. Actually, I really like this card back. I mean, it's not great, but yeah, this is pretty cool. Is there anything I want to change about it? And the answer is yes. So you look down at the bottom and they have the different statistical categories, and he's ranked a perfect 10 in all of them. But you might notice that the first one is creativity. Here's the problem. Santa is not known for creativity. For hundreds of years, he has been doing the exact same routine. No change to it at all. He's doing it exactly the same way. True, it works. But just because it works really well doesn't give him credit for creativity. You wanted to give him this a couple hundred years ago? Great. He was very creative then. But come on, guys, you got to do better than that. You got to give him like a 4.8 on creativity or something like that. This just doesn't quite cut it. But otherwise, it's strange to say this is the first 94 Stadium Club card back that I actually like. So as we're moving into the top 5, we're moving up to the top 5 that are better than the title card, right? Actually, no, not yet. Because first we've got to go through playoff. And the problem with playoff is the card is okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Santa as a coach, okay, that's fine. I have to say that personally, as a Bears fan, I'm not a fan of him being the coach of the Deers. To me, that's a little bit too chintzy. If the team colors had been a little different, I might have been okay with it, but I'm not. But I get the idea that they're going with. Here's the problem with the card. In 1993, they used the Tech Chrome effect to make the card glow. It really helped to make the card really come to life. And in this case, it's just bland. It's just kind of dropped out there, and it's just kind of there, which, now that I think about it, is a perfect description of 1994 playoff football cards. So, okay, all right. I give him credit for basically doing a Santa Claus card that has all of the life and enthusiasm of their main playoff card set. I wish that they'd done more of the contenders side because that was more fun, but they went with this one, and so it's just kind of there. But this is like a perfectly reasonable stock Santa card. I think that the title card is a little bit better. But as I move up to number 4, now we move up into cards that are actually really good and creative. Starting off with Skybox. And with Skybox, they did the same thing they'd done the previous year, where they just made a straightforward Skybox card. But in this case, it's a Jim Kelly card, and they didn't go in and do the trick of using Christmas colors. They leaned in on, well, if it's a Buffalo Bills card, so let's use the Buffalo Bills colors. So it reads as a Jim Kelly card. The only difference is that he is, in his hands that he's about to pass, he's got a present. And that's the only thing to change. And that's the only thing they did change, which means this whole card is very cohesive. It feels very clean and reliable. And the only reason that it feels Christmassy is because it has a present, which actually works. This is one of those cases where somebody came up with a very basic creative concept, and they pulled it off. The designer of this card should be the one who's got the perfect 10 for creativity. And I like that on the card back they have a Christmas tree. Now, it would be nice if the Christmas tree was more obvious and more readable, but still, I like the fact they have a Christmas tree on there. So this is an above average card. It's not great, unfortunately, but it's definitely above average, so definitely props to them for that. But thankfully, at number 3, we have a card that finally is great, and it's from Pro Line. Now, Pro Line was the what in the world happened there card from the previous year. Because in 1993, they had a card that didn't have any touch of the 91 and 92 cards that had been so great by Proline. 93, they fell off a cliff. Well, in 94, they picked themselves back up and they made a great card. And here they did the same thing where they used an actual normal Proline card design. But the Proline design is a lot better. But the big thing is the art. The art's a lot of fun. This is almost like a shade of the 93 wild card to an extent. I love the art in this. It is vibrant, it's exciting, it is entertaining, it's energetic, it's got all of those things going, which makes it so good. I really like the way this card comes through. And on the card back, again, it's very cartoony. I think it really works. So here, Proline is showing once again that they have honored the tradition that they were a part of prior to these NFL Property Santa cards of being one of the great stewards of the Santa Claus card tradition. But the top two are very familiar, where at number 2, we've got Upper Deck. And the Upper Deck card looks incredibly familiar because it's virtually the same card as in 93. It's a different image. The art is different, but the way it's presented looks exactly the same, almost like this is an outtake shot. Like they took 2 shots and went, well, this one we like a little bit better, that one we don't like quite as much. Obviously there are pictures, but it's like they were drawn at the same time. Now in 93, they had Joe Montana included and they had more of a story involved. So that had its own quality. Here, they went with more of a comical Santa playing football with the reindeer and the elves. And the reindeer and elves aren't very good at it because they don't have as much time to watch football as Santa does. The elves have things to do. They have a job. The reindeer have to work out and make sure that they're ready to pull the sleigh. And Santa basically does a little bit of paperwork and then has plenty of time through the fall to sit down and watch football. So he's much more in tune with the rules. They're not so much. And so it's like a big train wreck. I like the comedy of this picture. I really do. I think it's a lot of fun. Now, is it as good as the 93? I don't know, but it's still up there. So, props to them for that. But really, there's no question what's number 1, which is Action Packed. And because there's no wild card to surpass Action Packed is number 1. And the art is almost the same as the previous year. I mean, conceptually it's the same, even though the actual theme is very different. So here he's tying up a Vince Lombardi trophy as a gift. I wouldn't mind receiving that. And it's got gold foil in there. It hits all the marks. It's just great art. Now there's a vibrance to the 93 card that's not quite here. That's the only difference between them. So this is almost a step back, but like the Upper Deck card, is it really a step back or is it a step to the side? It's still very successful. Everything about this card I really love, but here it's able to shine as the number 1 card. So that is my ranking of the 10 different card designs for the 94 Santa Claus NFL Properties promo set. And they're all a lot of fun. I really did enjoy going through this. I wish that there were more cards that had been really successful, but there's a bit of a backslide with these designs, so that's just kind of the nature of it. But at least it was fun going through this. So definitely let me know if you think that I've got them in the wrong order. I'm curious to hear about that. If you haven't seen the 93 video, that's out there, but I've also done a whole video on NFL Santa Claus cards across the entire span. I did that last year. That's out there, so check that out if you haven't had a chance. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you very much for watching.